And we cannot heal and survive at the same time. We are either prioritizing survival or we are prioritizing health and healing and restoration and regeneration. And when we are not able to kind of flexibly move between those nervous systems, health gets put on the back burner.
Welcome to the Experience Miracles podcast, where we help parents find hope, answers, and drug-free help to overcome your child's chronic health challenges. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be sharing my experiences as both a dad and a doctor on every episode. I can take the latest science and neurology of healing and break it down in the most simple and relatable way possible. We'll take on the toughest topics and answer your biggest questions through interviews with other amazing parents and leading experts, leaving you with practical action steps that you can take to help your child heal and thrive. It's time to expect and experience miracles. Let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome back. This one's going to be crazy fun, crazy impactful. These two guests, yes, we've got two guests, Dr. Tanda Cook and Dr. Collier, and they are absolutely crazy in the best of ways. They are crazy fun, crazy impactful, and what they're going to teach you, my favorite thing, and it's kind of it is very much something we look for with every guest on the podcast. Hey, do you know your stuff? And are you passionate about your stuff? Awesome. But can you teach your stuff in a very implementable, real life way for busy families? Not just people who have, 12 hours a day to dedicate to their health and well-being, but can you make this stuff tangible? Can we actually use that? And so Dr. Tanda Cook is a naturopathic physician, a member of the Arbonne International Scientific Advisory Board. Sounds like a bunch of rock star nerds on that board, I'll tell you. The regenerative, and I say that, if you listen to the podcast, you know I love us natural health nerds. Regenerative farmer, that's where Tanda really crushes it on Instagram. You got to follow her. Food expert, published author, and international speaker. She is wildly passionate about educating and inspiring people to take the next steps to add more health to their lives. And that's such a great way to look at it, because that's really how health is. In order to even get rid of, so kind of subtract sickness and struggling, you add health. We're going to talk about that on this podcast. Dr. Katie is a food and nutrition expert, and she's crazy passionate about teaching her patients how to heal their bodies through food and lifestyle choices as well. And one of the things Dr. Katie is so great at is really having a gift for helping clients heal their relationships with food and just make peace with their bodies. And that, when you read that and you see that, that's actually important. A lot of us not only didn't grow up with these healthy choices and healthy lifestyles part of it, but we've really struggled with it. And so there's just this tough first bridge we've got to get over, which is honestly just mentally, emotionally being ready to step into this space. And that's just a few of the things that these two absolute natural health, naturopathic rock stars do. So we're so excited to have them on the Experience Miracles podcast. You're going to get so much out of this, really not just for your kids' health. This is one where these two, the real expertise they have is helping women, helping moms, and just busy rock star ladies be healthy, because that's who they are. They are hard charging, having fun, making an impact, just two rock stars. And I've got to know them for a long time through this incredible leaders mastermind with Dr. Josh Axe, getting together in Nashville, and just an incredible group of people that are natural health world changers. And these two were just two of the first we met, because they just have this energy that is infectious. And they have this platform through which they teach and help families that is just so impactful. So I couldn't wait to bring them on ours. Without any further introduction and explanation from me, let's get these two rock stars rolling. All right, everybody, here we go. We've got these two rock stars. You just heard their introduction. They are real world changers for families. And as we said there in the introduction, we're going to take a different direction, different focus with this one. We're here on the Experience Miracles podcast. And most of the time, awesomely, we're talking about kids' health and pediatrics and what's going on with our kiddos. But we would... And the plan from the beginning with the PX Talks platform was to not just make it about kids, but to make it a family-focused platform. And there is neurology to this, and there is just clinical experience, and there's just common sense, real life. We've all are living it sense to it that says, man, when mom is burnt out, when mom is, the phrase I always use with our patients, it's just very relatable to the moms we are blessed to serve at the practice. When they are wound up and worn out, that's a hard healing program for everybody. That's hard for them individually and their health and their quality of life. And that is something that can be, another tough road, another tough bump in the road to get the kiddos better too. So we like to see families that heal together. I know you two like to see families that heal together. And within that whole, we're farmers, within that whole pie, fresh baked, homegrown pie of family wellness, each of us has our specialty. Each of us has the thing that we wake up every day, and this is what God called us to do. This is who we serve. And so for you guys, it is really moms and women out there who every single flipping day just feel wound up, worn out, and exhausted. So if we start 30,000 and some view, if we just take a big picture introduction into this conversation, what is going on with women's health? What are the main core pillars and the keys to women's health that is not working well right now that we need to draw our attention to, take this conversation to? And once we get these big keys, well, then we can open the hood on them each individually and go more detail. But what are the big challenges, big causes of this exhaustion and anxiety and just daily struggle that a lot of women are going through?
I am so glad and grateful that you asked us to talk about this, because the number one reason that women find us, and Katie and I are both, as you said in our intro, naturopathic physicians, and we focus on functional medicine, functional health, and really helping basic physiology do its job, which is to heal us. Like, our body innately really is doing everything on the daily to try and get us to live as long as we can, as healthily as we can. And unfortunately, we're setting our little bodies up not to win because of the word stress. And Katie and I will dive into that a little deeper. The word stress, the word inflammation, the word hormonal dysregulation or hormone issues, I feel like are thrown around quite a lot and not fully understood the impact. And I'm saying that because from a physician standpoint on this end of the phone or this end of a Zoom call or this end of the desk, when Katie and I ask our patients, what is your stress level like? And they laugh sort of flippantly and say, well, I'm not a plastic surgeon or a brain surgeon, so I'm not stressed out. And the reality is, most of our patients find us between the ages of 40 and 65 when their bodies are starting to break down and their coping and compensation mechanisms are not working as well as they were in their 20s, when they could eat, drink, not sleep, stay up too late, and their body would bounce back pretty quick. Well, you try and do that when you're 47 years old. Well, it's a different story. So the answer is why, or question is why. And so what is stress? What is the stress response? Why do we have it? And what are the big triggers? And I think right now, Tony, we'll talk about some of them, in the end, some of the main pillars of health, but I want to start off with the main pillars of stress. And so underneath that umbrella of stress, what are the big stressors from the body's perspective? Not necessarily from Tony, today, how stressed out are you? Scale of 1 to 10, you're like, I'm a 2, I'm really not that bad. Your little body is how old are you? Tony,
what do we got to go down that road on this podcast for? I thought I was the one asking. I thought I was the one asking the questions.
I'll throw myself under the bus. I'm 44 years old. I'm a 44-year-old bucket of stuff. And my body is still dealing with things on the daily basis that happened when I was little, right? Based on the trauma response and whatnot. So when we say the word stress, what are we talking about? The big stressors for the body are blood sugar dysregulation, sleep dysregulation, thoughts, and we'll go deeper into all of these. Reality of you almost get into a car accident, and then inflammation. And then under the category of inflammation comes, food, environmental toxins, and Katie and I will dive deeper into those. But that's
okay, this is awesome. I'm going to keep pulling threads on these because this is the exact flow I wanted to go into. And also at any moment in here, I wanted to take this one because, I'm just so ready to help moms, so ready to help parents just get out of this exhaustion because, one, you deserve to be at full tilt yourself, no matter the age, no matter what you've been through. Life at full health, full nervous system, full regulation is fantastic. And then we get to live it, and then we get to lead that life and set that example for our kiddos as well. So I'm so ready to do this. And I love this from the body's perspective. Talk about having a chiropractor's love language coming out here, right? And being like, okay, let's not just look at this from like, oh, on Instagram and on Google, they talk about stress. Let's not do a WebMD dissection here, which isn't a dissection at all. Let's actually talk about it from the body's perspective. And those top 5, I'm going to sneak a 6th one in. And kind of funny, the sixth sense, that's kind of a phrase people are familiar with. The silent one, meaning it really does fly under the radar of the body, as many of these do. But it really flies off the radar from what most people are aware of, is something called subluxation and nervous system interference. But I love this because moms out there, if we say, okay, we know that, yes, it's easy to answer, okay, every day is just, I got the kids, I got this, I got everything going on, that I got to keep up with. And so to not really check in with your stress levels. But unfortunately today, so many just accept it like, stress is normal, right? I'm supposed to have it, right? Everything's fine, right? Well, let's ask your body. Let's ask your physiology. Let's ask your neurology as you go through that. But I wanted to just get right into it, but also at any time where it fits. I'd love for you guys to weave your stories in here as much as possible. There had to be something, right, that called you to this work and serve this in incredible way that you do. Okay, as you go through those from the body's perspective, and again, we'll do the deep dive later on, what does this start to look like every single day as blood sugar, sleep, mental, emotional thoughts, certain traumas, accidents, and inflammation, as they start to rear their head and do their thing? What are some warning signs of stress is really in the way of your health on a day-to-day granular basis? What does a list like that look like?
Yeah, I mean, really, because stress is so all-encompassing for our body, every system can be impacted. So that can look like chronic headaches, that can look like skin stuff, that can look like digestive issues, that can look like, hormonal or infertility issues. I will say that there are probably systems in the body that are more susceptible to stress, particularly in women. I would say digestion and our hormone health are probably the most, they're kind of like canary in the coal mine, I would say. Totally. Is that they'll kind of shut down or start to work a little bit more wonky first. And skin, I would say, is probably the other place that we see it.
Well, so let's link those up. So let's pull the thread on digestion. So when it comes to digestion, for a mom, for a woman, what are some things within the digestive umbrella that are going to start to go offline? And again, if the skin gets involved, that is a dead giveaway that the digestive system is not doing its job, right? And the skin's coming in as backup. That's a pediatric thing too, right? Like when you see skin stuff, you know that gut's been a mess for a long period of time if it had to call on the skin to help out, right? So pulling to digestion, what are the early signs of digestive challenges? Hey, stress is setting up shop here.
Absolutely. So I think to kind of lead up to that, it'd be helpful to kind of talk about the nervous system and the stress response and how that's actually impacting our physiology. Perfect. Because when we are sitting at we could be laying in bed and worrying about money or our children or whatever it may be. And our body can actually go into a physiological stress response that is not inert. There's stuff happening in our body. We like to kind of describe it to people as a circuit breaker. If you imagine that there's a circuit breaker and your body goes, I'm standing in front of a tiger. Now, our tigers can be different. They could be money. They can be our children. It could be a health problem. It could be, you name it, right? When our body then goes, I'm going to turn certain things on to help fight this tiger or run away from this tiger, and I'm going to turn other things off. And the name of the game when we're running from a threat, because the stress response is designed to keep us alive under immediate danger. And so unfortunately, our modern day and our stress response aren't linked up. Modern day means that we could be feeling like we are in immediate danger and our stress response turns on when we're actually not in immediate danger. And our thoughts are kind of just, moving us into that stress response. So when we think about running away from a tiger, that's really what our stress response was designed to do. It was designed to keep us alive. So we need more energy. So our blood glucose is going to go up. Our heart rate is going to increase. Our vessels are going to dilate. Our blood is going to be shunted to our limbs. We're going to start to conserve energy because your body doesn't know how long it's going to be having to run away from that tiger or fighting that tiger to survive. What we're also going to do is start to turn off things that aren't necessary for survival in that moment. So digestion, we don't really care about it. It takes energy to digest. So we're not going to be spending energy, that precious energy that is going to, like, that your body thinks is going to help keep it alive by running away from that tiger. We're not going to spend it on breaking down that food. So we can still have, like, our digestion will still, quote unquote, work, but it's not going to be working optimally because our body's just not going to spend that currency. It feels wasteful in the moment. So with digestive stuff, we'll see, a lot of bloating, discomfort, acid reflux. I mean, anything really that could affect your digestive tract, which runs from our mouth to our anus, we can see symptoms show up. We'll also see symptoms around revolving absorption, because our main job of our digestive tract is to break down nutrients to then absorb it. So if we're not breaking down those nutrients well, we're also not absorbing them well. So then we see kind of, nutritional deficiencies, nutritional insufficiencies, skin and nails can be affected, and because digestion really is the seat of health, we can see then from there on out, it's like tendrils can then go into any system in the body. But it makes sense from a physiological perspective because your body is not going to be worried about, digesting lunch if it's going to be lunch for a tiger, right? It's just, we're not going to prioritize that.
Yeah.
Then moving into the hormonal system. And that's why I think these are kind of the systems that can be more directly influenced in the beginning stages of just, how long you've been under chronic stress. Our hormonal system is the same idea. Because you don't actually need your reproductive organs to survive from an acute threat, guess what gets a backseat, right? It's like it actually takes energy and nutrients and resources to create sex hormones to sustain life. Our body also, when we're thinking about our reproductive organs, whether you want to or not, if you are a cycling, female every 28 days, you do have the opportunity to get pregnant, whether you're trying to avoid that or whether you're trying to, whether you are trying to conceive, is kind of beside the point from a physiological perspective. But from a stress perspective, that hormonal system takes a backseat because it's too costly. And also, why would we be thinking about bringing a new life into a very stressful environment, right? So our body just doesn't prioritize reproductive organs. So we see that as, low levels of progesterone is one that we see all the time. And I've heard PMS to be described as progesterone missing syndrome. It's because progesterone kind of like, she bounces under acute stress. Yeah. So we see things like cramping, we see things like irregular periods, PCOS, endometriosis, troubles conceiving. We see that with heavy periods or clotting in your period. I mean, there's all kinds of different hormones, acne, hair growth where we don't want it. Like, we can see our hormonal system really can get out of whack, again, because it's a currency issue with the body. Our body is feeling like it's under the demand to stay alive, and we're going to save energy wherever we can. And so that's kind of what I would say. Those two are primary systems that get out of whack with women in particular.
Awesome. So stinking awesome, because I'm going to jump all the way forward to the healing process to get moms some tip sheets on how to know that what you're doing to help yourself heal is actually going to start to work. Because this sequence, so our audience, especially if it's like, I know a lot of our trained chiropractors listen to this too. Obviously, we made this podcast for parents to learn about, okay, hey, we're out here, we're ready to help. But us nerds, we all listen to each other all the time, right? We love our collective podcast because we love to learn more, because the more we learn, we can help. And so the thing we talk about all the time is the sequence of the perfect storm. So here we're talking about a mom of today. This modern world, son of a gun, is stress unrelenting. And it's a real son of a gun because it's been so normalized. Like, no, you're supposed to have all these expectations and these pressures and these schedules and everything else. And that's normal. And you're not doing your, like, all of this is nuts, right? Once we really open the hood and take a look at it. So stress can be deceiving because it's been so accepted that it is a daily toll in this modern world. And so then what we find all the time is there's a sequence by with which we get sick. We know it really well in our world, in the pediatric world, but I know it really well in the parent and the mom world, but I could not wait to jam with you guys today because I want to know it better, because I want to do better for our patients and be able to understand, not just, oh, like you said there, Katie, you nailed it. And it's like, we can just have this like general overview of stress. Cool. How much does that really help people? Not that much until we get into the actual components of it. Well, jumping all the way forward to healing, once you know the sequence by with which a child or a mom or a patient gets sick, you can actually, because we all focus this, or we all specialize in this naturopathic, chiropractic art of healing. And it actually is what we call restoration or reorganization, right? We can actually start to predict the order of certain systems and certain things that will come back online for a mom and for a patient. And this is freaking awesome. And I'm triple tapping on this because I think it might be a very crucial conversation for moms to understand, because here's what I know about moms in my practice. And I'm going to have a little fun with this. I am a dad, so I can send us right under the bus, and I can pull over and back up, and I can just keep running myself over all the time on this one, okay? So here's what sucks about how important that endocrine system and how susceptible it is to stress for moms. It is less susceptible and obviously dudes have an endocrine system. Dudes have a hormonal system. Obviously it's essential to them. But if we compare one to the other, the hormonal system for female health is much more of a major player than it is for dudes, which is why this real life joke that's not also funny to everyone when it plays out. So a dude can go like 38 years. Like a dad could have last gone for a run his senior year of PE when they made him, right? And he just slugged it around the gym a few times. And then skipped 3.5 decades of working out. He's slamming Portillo's chocolate shakes, sitting at a computer all the time, filling out NCAA brackets. I'm playing this one out dramatically, as is my way. And then he decides, you know what? For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to not eat like a moron, and I'm just going to go walk around the block a few times. And said dude loses like 28 pounds, and just his health rebounds, and it's just like magic sauce, right? We do very little and very lots. Very, very much good stuff happens. There's some good English for you. And then in my mom patient base, they will come in and I'll take an intake and I'll be like, hey, I see you're struggling with this, unfortunately, multi-systems challenge. Stress has overrun you over these last couple of decades, and your gut's offline and your endocrine system's offline and your immune system's offline and you got the headaches, list goes on. But there's another long list on her paperwork, and it says, well, I'm doing these 57 things to try and get myself well. I have cleaned up my diet. I'm taking supplements. I'm doing essential oils. A mom's healing journey actually really mirrors my other specialty, an autism healing journey, where they're doing 173 things all at once. And it's really freaking tough because they're doing 1,000 things and they can't seem to break through. And I wanted to get into that because because they've been struggling for a long period of time, and this is just human life, they kind of give up maybe right before they're about to get that breakthrough with their healing, right? Because they're just not seeing the big changes. So long, Tony, draw out here to say, if the digestive system gets sluggish, breakdown, absorption, assimilation, elimination, energy from that, if these are the first systems to go offline, can we predict that when a mom gets in healing mode, she gets under your care, she gets under our care, can we start to look for what we call these soft initial signs of healing to give her some milestones, to give her some, props and say, hey, I know maybe your anxiety isn't gone yet. And I know maybe these migraines aren't gone yet. And I know maybe your fertility isn't all the way online yet. But if we just, taking that minimizing word and maximizing it here on this parable, if we just see your digestive system working better, holy heck, are we on the right road? Is that an important deep layer conversation for moms when you turn the tide to help them heal? I know I'm a little bit into that already. Can we see signs that are a little subtle, but also super encouraging to you as a provider for these moms to say we're on the right track?
Yes. And I think, you just unpacked a lot there, Tony. I think that women, again, because we do work mostly with women, there's a lot of, and maybe you can speak into the male side of this. And I'm just going to go there. There is so much suppressed trauma in women that holds their health back. And I think what women think is that if they just change their diet and go hit CrossFit, that they're going to lose the weight, which is the number one reason why women find us is weight loss.
Right.
And Katie and I take that very seriously, both having histories of eating disorders, that we make it very, very clear that we will not help you lose weight. We will help you get healthy. And as a result, you're probably going to lose some weight. But weight is a very tricky and terrible metric of health that we put a lot of emphasis on. And the other thing is, I don't think that women actually acknowledge the amount of stress that they're under. And I don't also think that we as women acknowledge that our hormones are very, very differently set up than men.
Yes.
And actually going through into, perimenopause and menopause, us as women naturally go into a form of insulin resistance to hold on to more weight. And so we're almost like fighting with nature in a way, because we all want to look like, JJ Virgin or something. And that may not actually be possible. But what is possible is for us to feel really good in our body when we actually get to the root of what is out of alignment. Because our body we don't wake up one day with thyroid dysfunction. We don't wake up one day with autoimmune disease. We don't wake up one day with cancer. It may feel like that to some people, or like the weight gain is so slow. And then all of a sudden you see a picture of yourself online and you want to like do all the things to not be there. I think there's not a lot of conversation and acknowledgement about the slow, insidious process of insulin resistance, of metabolic disorders, of blood sugar dysregulation, of sleep dysregulation, of childhood traumas that are still caught in our nervous system and come out as subluxations or come out as digestive issues, and then women go to food and they think that if they just really hit the gym and change their diet, that everything's going to fix itself. And it's just, unfortunately, this is not a real statistic, but I'm going to say 90% of the time for women, it doesn't work. And so then what Katie and I do is like actually digging underneath we're doing a deep dive into dopamine, right? Like what is the dopamine pathway? And the dopamine is it's a neurotransmitter, but it's also a neuromodulator. So it modulates so many other things, like our motivation, our drive, our wanting to do something. And so there's so much dysregulation there. It's not just diet and I want to say it's not, we're using just here as you did. Yeah. It's like, there's so much more than diet and lifestyle. I was listening to a podcast a couple of years ago by a naturopath who was working in the functional medical floor of the cancer center in, I think it was Cleveland Clinic or something. And she was saying that when they're looking at patients' recovery and remission of cancer, that diet plays 30% of their remission, 30%. And here we are focusing 90% on food. And and I'm not saying food's not important, because we're not plants, we don't photosynthesize. It's incredibly important. But I think what goes very unspoken, which is where you, Tony, shine, and Katie and I really shine the light on, is nervous system.
Can we order a t-shirt that I know you'll wear that says we're not plants, we don't photosynthesize?
Yeah.
You might have missed it, but the farm kid biology undergrad, I remember saying, okay, we'll lighten the mood for a second. Then we're going to go right back into, because we're about to go into emotional trauma and how the nervous system traps it and stores it in the body, which should be an exciting conversation, because if you know that it's there, you can go there first to get it out of the way so everything else works better, which is where we're going with the rest of this. But I remember sitting in we all have to do this, right? When you go to become a provider, your undergrad degree, which I don't think this is just for doctors, your undergrad degree is about as useless as, going to the gym and changing your diet when your nervous system is exhausted. There, we'll parlay our things together. And I was taking a class. I went to Iowa State. I went to an egg school, right? So I'm learning all about plants and animals and photosynthesis and how an evergreen tree reproduces. And I remember distinctly sitting in my junior year, because I'm kind of a forward-thinking guy, and I was like, I will never use a single bit of this degree in my future job. And so that was photosynthesis for
it all comes full circle.
You're speaking of trauma locked into a nervous system. You just tapped into you just tapped into my junior year of college learning stuff I knew was going to be useless. All right, don't worry, it was fun. Speaking of diet, that was the Jimmy John's and Busch Light diet. So, and remarkably, even though it was light beer, I didn't lose weight. Real weird. Okay. So in this world we live in, there is a sequence to the storm for all of us. And you nailed it. Most every influencer doctor, so traditional doctors blame genetics, and they have missed the boat. That is now proven to, when we talk about percentages, especially with chronic disease and metabolic challenges, all the things we're talking about here, genetics are a very small player. I do not think they would even get close to the 30% mark that you referenced there with that study in diet. Now, what we continue to see in the research, what we continue to see in practice, and is not complicated when you just look at it with how God designed us, the nervous system is the boss. And most of us were directed to the gym, we're directed to supplements, we're directed to diet changes, and we're supposed to put all this into a completely wound up, worn out, disorganized nervous system. So I'll break down the nervous system first a little bit here, ladies, and then you run with it as to how you connect with your patients and clients and get them, shine the light on where that is and help them heal through these traumas. Because the nervous system goes through 3 stages of what we call subluxation. And subluxation is a familiar word to the listener of the Experience Miracles podcast, but maybe this is the first one you've jumped on. So subluxation, simply put, means stress stuck on. So the sympathetic response of the body, that fight or flight response that Katie perfectly depicted earlier, it's fine in the short term. You're supposed to, the way we're designed with that sympathetic fight or flight response, we either outrun the tiger or we are done. It's a short response, right? Like the tiger catches us or he doesn't, And so it's designed to be turned on for a short period of time and then turned right back off so that balance and regulation and parasympathetic and vagus nerve things can run the show. We're supposed to spend more time there. And in the modern society, that time equation of which mode of neurological operation we are in is completely flipped on its head from what is healthy and where healing can come from. So the first acute stage of subluxation, when we experience these traumas, they can be physical, they can be chemical, and they can be emotional. So in chiropractic, we call them the 3 T's: traumas, physical; toxins, chemical; thoughts, emotional. Now, let's play out the short term. I really want to focus on that and make sure you know where the big ringer is that you've got to address. Out of the first 2, a physical trauma, we've all had them, falls, injuries, whatnot, right? Grow up on a farm, they're going to happen for sure. Chemical trauma, margaritas on Thursday night or, porta. Okay, those are one-time events. You don't stay in the fall. You don't keep drinking, So yes, those are ones that are going to trigger a sympathetic response, but then the body immediately begins to heal from them because the event passes, not with the 3rd T, not with emotional trauma. That is sustained exposure to stress, right? And it is the unrelenting, always there one when not addressed. So whatever 3, so I'm going to come back to the 3 stages of sympathetic dominance and subluxation. So then once you get into sympathetic dominance, it's the same thing as saying now, as Katie wrapped out perfectly, now the body's going to get out of balance. The parasympathetic system is going to become exhausted. And the second stage of subluxation is what we call just disorganization, confusion. The word of right now, and it's a really good word. There's kind of like this whole conversation we're having. It deserves a deeper dive. But the second stage is dysregulation. So now the nervous system becomes dysregulated, and the first victims are the gut, and then the endocrine system, and then the musculoskeletal system, and the list goes on. So it starts to affect our day-to-day health. The third layer, third stage, and I use the word stages because people are familiar that, in health, the more stages you go through, the more trouble you're facing of a certain thing. So the third stage of subluxation is exhaustion. This is where the adrenals give up the fight. This is where literally the body stops working, period. And you go into a full state of depletion. And so the amount of imbalance that is there in the third stage is significant. And we need to understand all 3 stages of this because there's signs to it. And then there's a prognosis component. We need to be able to take a look back into a mom's case history and say, okay, well, if this stress on your nervous system has been there for years to decades, we've got to make the clinical assumption, if you will, that you're well into stage 2 and likely into stage 3. And so what I see is really getting in the way of moms healing these days is short, and it's going to sound so obvious, but when you have neurological exhaustion, you have to address it as such. And when the foundation of their metabolic issues, the foundation of their digestive issues, the foundation of their endocrine issues is actually the central and autonomic nervous system, you've got to put all of the focus on that first. And you got to be patient with the other stuff. You might have to put the other stuff on the shelf and say, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to the HIIT workouts. We're going to get to the, supplementation and detoxification, but we've got to get your nervous system in a better place first. And I'll shut up after this and let you guys run with it. There's also, and it can be kind of one of the final things we talk about here, there is a significant difference between nervous system repair and nervous system regulation, or kind of like taking care of it. If your nervous system has been smoked out, exhausted for 30 years, and it is way out of balance and way subluxated, that cold plunge isn't potent enough to reset it. That walk in nature isn't potent enough to reset it. That is where chiropractic and HRV and that kind of adjusting comes in. And we've got work to do. And we can do this work, by the way, let me turn it forward. That work, that repair, that's what this kind of chiropractic is. We do repair before we do regulation and wellness. And often there's lots of layers to that. So when you guys are taking a case in and you're knowing the experts you are and the full, complete understanding that we're having here is in there, and hey, for this mom, we've got to get her to focus on her nervous system first. What does that conversation look like? And what action steps come from that conversation that you make within your clinical recommendations?
I think it's about, the first conversation is really the conversation that we're having right now, is defining what stress is. I think lifting the veil for women to actually acknowledge and recognize the amount of stress that they're under, because 90% of the time I ask about stress and it's really we blow right through it. I'm an optimistic person. I'm not really that stressed out. Like, I'm pretty chill. It's not a big deal, and then we dive in and it's like, they're a mom of 3, they're working 2 jobs, they're running around, their blood sugar is kind of all over the place. Their body has been under that stress, that chemical, the physical and emotional stress for decades. And I think it's then also talking about how our stress response is really designed to either be in sympathetic or be in parasympathetic. So that sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight, sometimes freeze or fawn. We can also add that to the list of what the nervous system does over when it's turned on for a chronic amount of time. Like you said, it really should just be an acute thing that happens, that our body goes into sympathetic, fight or flight, we survive the threat, and then we come back and we plug back into that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest nervous system. What happens is a lot of us we occupy far too much time in that sympathetic nervous system, and we become conditioned to spend more time in that sympathetic nervous system. The thing is that it's not just thoughts and emotions and, environmental stressors that we come up against in our life that will turn us into that sympathetic nervous system. It's what our body defines as a threat or as a stress. So we're talking about things like sleep dysregulation, not getting enough sleep. It's like sleeping, and I'll define that as sleeping less than 6 hours a night, or sleeping where it's interrupted. Then it's blood sugar dysregulation. And this issue with insulin resistance we're being shown that it's starting in our teenage years. So this is insidious stress on the body. It doesn't mean that you have diabetes or even pre-diabetes. What this means is that you are riding a blood sugar roller coaster for most of your day. And the impact of stress on our blood sugar, not only is blood sugar dysregulation a stressor on the body, but also stress will impact our blood sugar. So some of the coolest things that we've seen, we prescribe continuous glucose monitors to a lot of our patients. And the impact of stress is staggering. Food might be fairly dialed in. It's like they're eating a relatively whole foods based diet.
A lot of the time. Yeah.
They're moving their bodies. It's really not a food and exercise thing, but they are about to get on a stressful phone call, and their blood sugar, and they're fasted, and their blood sugar is through the roof. And that is that physiological impact of stress. So then we think it's like we are drinking out of a stress fire hose, and our body is chronically kind of like, I guess for lack of better terms, stuck in that sympathetic nervous system. And we cannot heal and survive at the same time.
No.
We are either prioritizing survival or we are prioritizing health and healing and restoration and regeneration. And when we are not able to kind of flexibly move between those nervous systems, health gets put on the back burner because we're really just we're under duress for long periods of time.
So how do you get them started? So if you, and I love this, I actually want this to be just foundational basic stuff because man, in today's world, again, it's that duality of exciting, like, oh, there's so much conversation about nervous system regulation. There's so much conversation about natural health and healing. It's awesome right now to practice the traditional medical, blame genetics, take pharmaceuticals, drugs first. That's the Titanic. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate, they're out there. The band is playing, the thing's going down, and like they're still playing the same tune, but like they're going, it's shifting. These moms, this generation, we want to shift it for ourselves. We want to shift it for our kiddos. Well, we need action to shift it. Talking about shifting between the two sides of the nervous system. So to get the parasympathetics, to get the sympathetics to chill the bleep out, and to get the vagus nerve and the parasympathetics back on, what are 3 action steps and tools that you send moms towards in the early stages of your care plan to get them moving in the right direction?
I have to give you 3.
Yep.
Well, before we do the 3, I just want to talk really quickly about what it actually takes to be a human. Like how are humans designed? Because a lot of times, these moms will come to us and be like, I'm so stressed out and I shouldn't be feeling this way and I shouldn't be doing this and I shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, Mary Jane, that's not a Mary Jane problem. That's a human design problem, right? It's like so it's also taking the blame out of it. But then what does it actually take to set us up as humans to live a long life? One is food. Again, back to science. We're not plants. We don't photosynthesize. So, focusing on as many whole foods as possible, nutrient dense foods as possible, eating on a regular basis. I don't think a lot of women should be doing intermittent fasting right now. I don't think that they're metabolically set up to do that. If you haven't already been working with a functional medicine doctor and have done labs on blood sugar, and I really think that intermittent fasting is very similar to cold plunging, where it's very beneficial when you're set up to do it healthfully. And I just feel like a lot of women are not there yet. So eating on a regular basis, that means 3 meals a day, really prioritizing protein to help the blood sugar. Number 2 is sleep. Sleep sounds like, and I'm taking a deep dive into sleep hygiene. That means going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, sleeping in pitch black. That means either eye mask or blackout curtains. You can do a noise machine if your husband is snoring, or things like lavender will lower cortisol. Cortisol needs to be low at night. So helping women come up with a bedtime routine that they can stick to that allows them for 7+ hours of sleep a night. Breastfeeding moms don't count like that. There's a category of women that this doesn't count for, but anyway, so sleep and then movement. We're designed to move. We're made up of pulleys and hinges and levers. And the number 1 movement associated with longevity is walking. It's free. Get a pair of shoes or not. It's like, just go move your body. But specifically for women, resistance training, you have to do, and I'm going to have to on people. It's just not an option. 97% of females over the age of 80 will have osteoporosis, which means 97% of females under the age of 80 already have osteoporosis or osteopenia and are on their way there. The 2 ways to heal that: resistance training and food. So healing your gut. And then, elimination, like making sure that they're pooping, making sure that they're staying hydrated, making sure that they're getting electrolytes. There's an electrolyte company that we love called Element, and 100% of us are deficient in potassium. You can't have a high functioning body if you're deficient in anything that the body needs. So making sure that we're getting electrolytes on a daily basis. I don't care if you're sweating or not, you're drinking electrolytes every single day. The other is those minerals. Breathing. Oh, go.
Yeah. Those minerals are essential, aren't they? Because I know right now, so sometimes when we go through these lists, moms are like, well, I know that, but I struggle with that. I'll come back to the sleep. We'll give you a cheat code to sleep. But if you feel like you don't have the energy to get moving, the minerals and the element and those components of the electrolytes, that's an awesome. Do that. You'll get the benefit from that, which will fuel your body in a way you've been missing. Now you use that fuel, you use that spark to get moving, and you start to piece a lot of this together. Awesome. So, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about the role of adjustment in sleeping and pooping, because we're all the same. We talk about it all the time with kids, but it's the same freaking thing with adults. So
I love it. I can talk about pooping all day long.
Right.
And then breathing is another one. Like, many of us don't breathe. Many of us are breathing like this and using our accessory muscles and not using our lungs. Like, our lungs are one of our biggest eliminatory organs, and they're so important. So breathing is also free. Sleep is free. Walking is free. And then the importance of other elimination, like through your emotions. Crying is actually one of the coolest ways to eliminate. And yet in our society, we typically shut it down or apologize. I mean, women, the amount of times that women start to cry on our Zoom calls and then immediately apologize, I could retire on the end if I had $1 for every time that happened. It really is sad to me that we shut that down. It's such a healthy emotion. It's such a healthy way to eliminate. And then the importance of play. Like, that is what, like, play, community, connecting with people that you love. That is the number one thing associated with longevity, is community and purpose. And so I feel like, too, a lot of moms have gotten removed from that. And so there's the missing piece, right? It's like, there's so much there. So what makes us a human? Those things. And so focusing on those things, we'll have our patients rate them from a 1 to 10, like where they feel like they're falling on that scale. And so then every session, we're like, well, okay, a month ago, you were at a 2 with sleep. Where are you at now? With the introduction, with your sleep hygiene routine, getting into, to a chiropractor, getting some acupuncture, adding magnesium, adding, creatine or glycine, or some of these amino acids that can really help with sleep regulation as well. So those are the physical things. And then, do you want to dive in before we do the 3? Or
that's not, I thought that was 3 times 3 right there.
We can give 3 practical, like, vagus nerve exercises.
Okay. Hit them. Yes. Hit them. Hit those 3 for sure, buddy.
Castor oil packs, I have to say, are one of my favorites.
Yep. Magnesium.
Awesome.
Yep. Supplementing in magnesium, like 99% of us are deficient in magnesium because our soil is so depleted. Yep. And that is just, it's involved in over 900 different reactions in our bodies. It is necessary, and it is critical for our nervous system health and to just relax. So magnesium's got to be number 2.
The one that's coming up for me now, and Katie and I did not premeditate this, is actually just getting the frick outside, like binging on nature and getting connected to earth. If you can take your shoes off and it's not snow on the ground, I'm a crazy and will take my shoes off when there's snow on the ground, but getting more connected to Mother Earth. She is so dialed in to healing. And the more we connect with her, and getting fresh air is so important, because a lot of our toxicity and environmental toxins come from our air, our water, and our food. And so if we can start to clean that up, especially in our homes, I think that's really, really important for the body, because it can eliminate a lot of that inflammation and that stressor on the body. Just binging on nature and getting outside.
Come on. This job hosting a podcast and interviewing all these rock stars, it is so stinking impossible and awesome at the same time, because I just want to keep talking for, like, how high schoolers have a lock-in, right? And they're like, we're just staying here all weekend. I just want to stay on Zoom here, or on our podcast here app. I just keep talking about this stuff and keep going. But in the same breath, what we're looking to do with each podcast episode is really laser you in on something that we know, in its singularity, really, really affects your family's life. So the different podcast episodes that dive into different conditions or different challenges or different things with pediatrics. Same with this one. The PX Talks platform and this podcast was designed with the whole family in mind. That is why, so out of the PX, so the pediatric experience is the parent experience. It's the prenatal experience. It's the preconception experience, right? So we're bringing content out there like crazy. What I want to just bring us home with on this incredible episode is, as you go back through that incredible list that these rock stars just took us through, let's say you're looking to prioritize your sleep and your digestion, and no matter what you do, no matter how much you can frickin', you just douse yourself in lavender, you're snorting magnesium. This is just my way facetious and taking jokes, Kay. And you literally like paint your whole house black from the inside out, and you just can't get your dang nervous system to chill out, go into parasympathetic mode, fall asleep, and go to the bathroom before you went to bed, right? So this is where chiropractic is a unbelievable life transforming cheat code, especially, well, really throughout the whole journey, but especially in the early stages of early stage of that healing journey. What we see, and the three things they just gave us, castor oil, magnesium, and walking in nature, those are all parasympathetic activating activities. Magnesium is a relaxing agent for the nervous system. Castor oil is designed to relax and get the system shifted into parasympathetics, which is exactly what Katie and Tanda and myself were talking about the whole time. There's a now this is the last most important detail. There is a different kind of chiropractic that you want to go to and make sure you go to get this kind of healing to happen. And that is a nervous system focused pediatric and family chiropractor. They need to use HRV technology first because we need to measure. We can actually quantify and score your nervous system's health or lack thereof. And then we can make specific targeted adjustments to the vagus nerve, to the parasympathetic system. And where moms carry their stress is in their upper neck and shoulders. And that is where sleep comes from. So when that subluxation sets up shop physically, if you will, in that area, one of the first things to go offline is your sleep. The second area that moms carry their stress is right between their shoulder blades and kind of at that bra line. And that is right where digestion and adrenal function come from. So now those two systems get offline from that subluxation. And the third most common area that women carry stress is in their pelvis and in their sacrum. And there's a whole parasympathetic plexus of nerves there as well. So when you get the right kind of chiropractor, you get the right care plan and you get the right adjustments. And we'll end on this. The coolest thing about chiropractic, you don't have to do anything. You show up, lay down or sit there and get adjusted. And all of a sudden you're like, I slept 12 hours last night. I had no idea that was coming. I didn't show up for work, but that's okay because that's stressful anyway. So double down on the healing. I haven't gone to the bathroom in a week. I went 3 times and it was glorious. And they get adjusted. Do you know how many times? All the freaking time, ladies, this won't surprise you at all. We go to make their first adjustments, and immediately after the adjustment, there is just this massive release of crying and laughing and what the heck is happening to me. They turn around and they look at us, they're like, what is happening to me? Exactly what you've freaking needed to happen this whole time. You are finally getting this adjustments to release this stress that's been trapped in your body and your nervous system forever. And what I love about chiropractic, and we'll close her down on this. Well, actually, we're going to close down on how they get connected with you guys. But what I love about this kind of chiropractic is it does a ton on its own for female and mom health, but it is the best table setter. Now, all those things that you tried before that quote unquote didn't work, guess what works beautifully when your nervous system is regulated? Diet changes, detoxes, cold plunges, you name it. You want to attack that list, and you should. That's good health over there. There's a foundational healing and repair to your nervous system that chiropractic can do first. For moms, it usually takes about 90 days, sometimes even up to 6 months of some pretty heavy dose chiropractic, getting adjusted 3 times a week to make these changes to your nervous system. And once we get that foundational chunk of the care plan, we call it the release phase of the care plan done, then you can go into reorganization and regulation. So if you feel like you are a mom listening to this podcast and you have tried all the things and continue to run into a dead end road, get nervous system focused chiropractic. Go to the website, check out the directory, but most importantly from this podcast episode for sure, you've got to follow Dr. Tanda Cook on Instagram and Dr. Katie Collier. We're going to put your tags on there in the show notes, and then you've got to get connected to them, the Soapbox Docs membership, which I'm coming on there soon, aren't I? And do I get this Soapbox invite? Yeah,
absolutely.
Your membership, I don't know how else to say it other than it is a must, moms. When we say go follow these two on Instagram and get involved in their community, you want to talk about healing with the most amount of fun and craziness. I love you. I cannot wait for the reels and the posts to come out. I love hanging out with you too because I feel so normal, and that is just my favorite thing because you are joyfully bringing women to a better life. And I just love everything you do. I know your courses and your membership are worth their weight in gold. And so moms out there, go follow Tanda, go follow Katie on Instagram. You'll have a blast doing it and you'll have your life changed as a result of it. You too, I love you. We appreciate you like crazy. You will be back on this podcast for a round 2. We'll see if we can get into photosynthesis even a little bit more next time and all of that. But thank you so much for joining us. And moms and dads out there, please remember to subscribe and share the heck out of this podcast. This thing is designed and will do the job to bring hope, answers, and drug-free kick butt healing to your entire family. And so many other moms and so many other kids need this. So especially this one. I know how many mom groups you're in. I know how many group chats you're in. Even share it with your Android using mom who is ruining the group chat and save her life as well with this podcast episode, please. We'll see you on the next one.